Hi, hey, what's up? I'm Brett, principal engineer here. I'm going to be talking in probably about 80% around just using AI in general. And when I say for engineering, this is using engineering like AI tools to create standardized like websites, REST APIs, make your code. It's not going to be on making models and things like that. So hopefully we're not expecting that. You're welcome to ask me afterwards on models, but we're going over just theory of it, at least in my experience and my thoughts on it. First thing here is what you're looking at, the presentation. It's actually a website that I built with AI. So this whole entire presentation is what we're going to actually be changing during the coding section. So everything you see is live. I'll be doing a little bit of the feature, which I will show that here. Today's goal, I'm just going to show you how to use context, prompt engineering somewhat, which will be spec-driven development if you haven't seen that before, and then a little bit of guidance around engineering teams, the different skill sets. One thing I won't be touching on is really vibe coding. I'll be showing that as a bad example, because it's going to be like existing code bases. It's not going to be new things. Vibe coding is very good. I'll touch on it for where you should be using it, but this is a lot on, like I mentioned, existing features or something that you want to really get into production. We can talk about if you think vibe coding is good enough for that. This won't be that talk. So, all right. What we're gonna build is, I'm actually gonna add to this website right here. Probably the simplest thing you can probably think of is going to be a floating button that shows confetti, right? Super exciting there. I'm gonna just narrate over a traditional approach that you're gonna do if, let's say like 5 years ago, if someone like your project manager, you see it in Jira and you're like, oh, you need to add this confetti button. First off, that's cool, but how that operates, I'm gonna show you the bad AI assisted approach, at least for this right here. That will be the vibe coded kind of approach there. For that, I can talk on vibe coding again. Doesn't mean that's bad, it's just bad in this context. And then a good AI assisted approach, which I will go over the different features that I like to use day to day. I think you all, whatever you do, software engineering, I know there's some recruiters in here, different project managers, right? At least you'll know the steps here. And honestly, what I do, you can use design-wise, especially project management. I'll show you a little bit of that. And then obviously engineering, so. All right, the landscape here. I'm gonna go over a few of the common mistakes out the gate that a lot of people, especially if you've seen like all the fancy stuff, to mention vibe coding again, that people get wrong here. One of the hardest things is large code bases. Your AI is just not going to pick up the actual details, as well as everyone that has dealt with super large code bases. You got like 50 people in there and nothing looks the same. So if you don't know what's going on, neither does the AI. Missing that foundation, which is going to be kind of those architectural rule sets, interesting to me at least. But things like what, I don't know, code you're using, how you like to structure your code, how your components are laid out in this regard because of this website, and then just using it for the wrong things, right? I think we know that AI is non-deterministic, so it's just going to give you a different result every time. And hopefully it doesn't do that to me on the vibe coding example, because I'm trying to use it as a bad example. So hopefully it doesn't work today, but we'll see. All right. For the large code bases, this isn't a large code base, but there was a past project that we just did here. And this was over the course of 5 months, and it already got to 267,000 lines of code, right? And with context of most AIs, you can probably fit that in there, but if you keep going, there's no way it's gonna be able to basically, most of the AIs, especially the tool I'll be showing today, which is Cursor, if anyone's interested, it's just gonna try to look for a file. It's really not gonna know what you're doing there. You're just kind of throwing up for grabs, and it will use AI to try to like figure out what files it should even look at. So this is a, I would say, small run, and it's already that many files. There's another one, I think it was PostHog, which is like an open source and analytical tool. They have over 1 million lines of code, 10,000 files. There's no way that AI will actually be able to do that, right? And that's where people that have vibe coded before, once you get to a certain point, you're just shooting at the wind. Like it won't be able to do anything for you. You're just gonna keep telling it you're angry and see if you can convince it. All right. Why that even matters? Like I mentioned, the context windows, they are getting pretty large. So at a certain point, you are actually gonna be able to fit them, but you just need to be careful of that depending on what model you use. On the engineering side, today I'll be using Claude, which is probably the most popular one. I'd have to see if it can fit that entire project in it. There's some like Google Gemini that can do larger, that are purpose built for kind of like super large context there. Thing here on AI can change unexpected parts, right? And I'll get into this on kind of like rule sets, Spec-Driven Development, really, which the rule sets are just the prompt engineering, essentially, is if you don't have kind of these structured updates and things like that, it'll just be like, I can do whatever I want. My favorite example, if anyone has done programming with TypeScript, is it will always just, you tell it to make a type, it'll just use any, which if you know engineering, you're not gonna do that. It basically says I'm lazy and I would like to get this done. So that's kind of what it goes for. And then being specific is very critical. I'll go through like the spec that I made for this, and you'll see how specific you can get, which for project managers is pretty important because you can almost feed it into it, where the engineer really is there to make sure it doesn't go off the rails, right? So foundation, just to touch on again, it's really those contexts, the rules, the guardrails. When I show the code, hopefully it becomes a little bit easier to kind of keep track of and examples of this stuff. All right. AI right here for what it's good at least on the coding front. Autocompletes, which honestly, a lot of people, at least senior principal engineers, they will use AI like to generate like full files and things like that. Honestly, if you're not using AI, you at least use autocomplete, especially with cursor, you just tab and it gets done like half your work. It's fantastic. Test variations, you have tools now that will you just point out a website, you just tell it to go break it, use it this week, and it will just basically test your things for you. If you really just need an exploratory tester, it's really good there. Research, right? We all know these general cases, and explain a problem, right? Especially in code that has no comments, which not shocker, but AI loves comment to code. I myself like comment to code, and I know there's a lot of people that hate it because it just clutters it. AI likes a lot of details. Things it struggles with is unfamiliar syntax. So like I mentioned, if you have like 20 different ways to do something, it's just gonna pick it. It's not gonna have an actual opinion, hallucinated methods, which software engineers will know that one. But deprecated APIs, things that haven't existed because it's not up to date, which I'll show you how to get around that as well. And then taking shortcuts, which brings you back to TypeScript, and you're just kind of bypassing your actual case that you want to do and make something well. You're not doing it anymore. You're just getting it to where the AI is like, oh, I'm done. That's its main goal. All right. This one I want to touch on before I do the demo, and I can send out a link later. This came out about last year, and it really kind of summarizes at least how I think about AI. Is you're really going to get about 70% of the way there, especially larger code bases. Unless you have an extremely like simple idea there. It'll get you all your boilerplate, most of what you need, especially on the front end. Sometimes this doesn't even work if you do backend engineering. Backend engineers don't post things on the internet, so it has nothing to reference. So you can probably flip that to 30/70 on backend. But yeah, the 30% here is where humans come in, which at least for now, this is still the case. This article is very good, by the way. Right, your actual domain knowledge, unless you're gonna feed in the entire company, like what it actually does, what it's going for, right? It's just not gonna know that. Edge cases, and then architectural decisions, which is gonna be like your cloud architecture, what type of security you want, maybe some tools, linting, things like that, that you really wanna put in there, or just folder structures, which you can do a lot of this with rule sets. But at the end of the day, I'll get to it. You do have to actually know what you're putting in there. And then yeah, reprompting will solve this. I've done it. I'm sure anyone who's done coding has done it, and probably anybody who's ever used ChatGPT has done it. All right. Yeah, so right here, I'll kind of swap over and show you some stuff. With tools here, the rules, I'll show you in a second, but that one is your prompts. MCP servers, which I'm sure a lot of people have heard of. This is a way that basically gives your AI tools. I know Claude, ChatGPT, you can connect other things to it right now. They basically use this as the tech there. It'll be able to actually pull your data correctly. And one I will show you is called Context 7, which I use to keep all the up-to-date basically docs. What it does for you is it provides an endpoint that has your tech that you're using for, it almost has all of them. it will have it in an entire markdown file, so your AI can just get the entire documentation that's actually up to date. So you don't have the issues of the deprecated methods, old endpoints, things of that nature, right? And then spec-driven development, which for anyone that's in project management or product management, honestly, I know we talked about it last week when I did a little bit of a demo internally, and how project managers can kind of structure their stuff. And it's honestly becoming where the more they give, as well as working with the engineering team or design team, you're actually going to get a better product. It's almost like you're feeding in a PRD, or product requirement document. Yeah, and now I'm going to go to coding real quick. And I'll show you this is actually a website, by the way. All right, so I'm going to swap over here. I will make this larger for everyone. I hope you can see this. So this is Cursor if no one's seen this before. So I'm actually running the website right here. All right, so let's do. All right, so what we're gonna do here is, if you can remember the problem, or the feature that we want to do, is just adding a button that shows Confetti, right? So this is gonna be my bad AI example. So I'm gonna reach over here, and I have the prompt here, and this is like what anybody did when it first came out. Just, can you add a floating button in the top right of my presentations to show Confetti, right? Very, very minimal here. And I can try to expand this out so you can see a little bit better. All right. All right, so I'm just gonna let this run, and this is where you can look away or drink while it's doing it. Yeah. Also, this is Claude. So Claude's a little bit slower. They have fast models. You can, at least on the engineering side, just pick what you like. I'm not sure if Claude's even the best one anymore. It's just what I'm used to. So, and when I say really fast ones, like there's ones that will get you done in like a quarter of a second. This entire thing here. All right, so it is installing the. I did test this like 10 times, and this is a simple project, so I'm hoping that it doesn't work, because that's the goal of this. Yeah, I had a large code base that I could have shown, but we would need an hour to explain it. All right, so it's keep still going here. All right, so once it's done, all right, so it's saying it's done. It put like a random gradient background, purple to pink, like I didn't even ask for that. So what we're gonna do here is we're just gonna run that right now. All right, we're gonna refresh it. And it now has some purple and pink button in the top right? And it comes straight out of there. So obviously in this case, I don't think we really care exactly what it looks like, but this isn't an actual, like no one like you're trying to make a product, you're not gonna just randomly say, go do it. Unless you are vibe coding, you just wanna have some fun Confetti, right? So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna undo this with Cursor, and I'm just gonna actually go into the fun part. I'm gonna check out the branch of good AI here. Not good, all right, good AI. All right, so we're gonna get rid of this. We're just gonna go to a new one. All right, so what we're gonna do here is I'm going to show you two things that I have. First one is going to be rule sets, right? Let me make this a little bit bigger. So these are rules that I made for really on the text side, right? And you can put this, I just put a general one. You can do this a bunch of different ways if you're familiar with it. They have a general one that's called agents.md. I just picked the Cursor general one. So what I did here, and these are really like your architecture documents here, where everything that you would just tell it, I want to use these exact things. These are how I'm formatting things. I have documentation. I'm telling it to use context 7, which I will actually show you real quick here. This is what I mean by it has everything up to date. So in this case, I'm using Confetti, and I'll find the package that I want. Or maybe not, I forget the name of it. We'll do Next.js here, because that's a typical one, and the site's in Next.js. So what you're gonna see here is it actually has your entire documentation right here. So this is available on MCP server, which I'll show you. The AI will actually use the tool to go grab this for you, right? Everything there. All right, so let me go back to here. Right here, I'm telling it what MCPs to use. You don't have to do this. I do this so it does make use of it most of the time. Sometimes it doesn't like it. That's where you get the prompt engineering, where AI just confuses itself. It doesn't want to follow you to do it. What I'm doing here is listing out everything, best practices I want. I'm using TypeScript. I'm telling it how to use client components, file naming that I like, project structures. I have like When it goes to add a component, which I'll be doing here for the button, it will know where to put it. And these are general things that most people, even like a README documentation, before AI would have, right? And you're just shoving it in there so it actually knows. And one thing that's really, really good to do is right here I have kind of like example files, which this is for types with Zod. I won't go into that. It's really good if you're doing this. It doesn't have to be code to give it good examples and bad examples. The good examples will follow, and the bad ones are really like, if you really do not want it to do something, you can give it an example, just put it all caps and it'll emphasize it. So, all right. Some more here, example sites. Right, and now you just keep going. These are like full ones. How do? Because this was actually the rule set that I made to use to basically make this site. Right, all right. So next one I'm gonna show you is actually specs here. So this is where you don't have to keep it within your documentation. I just have it in here. And what this is for the floating Confetti button. And this is where project managers, you can actually use Jira MCP here, and you can actually hook this up into it if you really want, to where it's actually pulling down your PRDs directly. So you can really get fancy and just have it basically pull directly from what your project manager's made alongside engineering and just have it go, give it a whirl. There's even fancier things you can do. You can kick off agents automatically in the background. So you can have it, give it a go where it gets that 70%, and then an engineer will come in later on to do the last 30. All right, so what I have here, I won't go through all of it. These are very in-depth. Like typically you won't have this on like a story or an issue that you're gonna be doing. I think you should, or at least references to what you're doing. I'm even going through like how the button props would be done. In this case, it might be overkill because this is just a Confetti button, so you may not use it for this type of thing here. What type I would like here, and these are things where on the designer side, these would actually, we're hoping it gets better, on Figma that you can pull via their MCP server. So you're really able to pull the entire design. What I did here was actually just tell it kind of the design that I'm going for, but even like a screenshot, it will do pretty well. So I won't go too much into that. So we're gonna get a new, one second. All right, we're gonna get a new agent here. I'm just gonna tell it, can you implement? Actually, I have it over here. Let me grab it. So I am telling it to implement this spec right here, and that is going to be a Confetti button. All right, so for this is just gonna be using, we have existing button components, and when you see it on the website, it's just gonna be like a little bit cleaner of a button, which I know is not as exciting, but you'll see here context 7, that is the MCP server to grab the updated docs on the package I wanna use here. All right. You can take a drink if you want. All right. All right, this is where I'll let it run. With cursor, you can just have these things go crazy and let them do whatever they want. For this one, it's probably fine, but some people, obviously, you don't want to. There's even database MCPs, but you probably don't want it to just have whatever access into there. So it's doing it. It's creating. This is where, let me start the site. While it's getting this going. After this, I'll be going more into the theory of where I see AI. So be a little bit more exciting than code if you're not familiar with it. All right, it's generating the update here to use the button. So it should be, here's the button here. There's a little follow my format here. Some things I actually didn't have is right here, you'll see like particle count and stuff like that. Didn't even specify that. So that's where AI, like even with that large spec, it's could just go and pick whatever it likes, right? So anything that it might be ambiguous, I can't say that word, but too large, it's just gonna go pick that randomly, right? So it should be, yeah, so it's saying it's good now. So I'm gonna go back here, go through the slide. All right, and we should, yeah, so we have the actual UI component with it going into the middle. So that's what I told it to do. I will post the code if you wanna read the spec. But you can do this for anything. Obviously, this is a simpler example, just because we only have a limited amount of time here. Yeah, but essentially, it was able to use my existing component, did everything correctly, and followed the spec that I gave it, which project managers can make with the engineering and design team, and then the rule sets, which are really just your architectural decisions there. All right, so, but we'll go back to everything here. So let me, okay. So we'll go into more on just my thoughts on it. We're done with coding, so you can look back. All right. All right, so on fundamentals, still mattering, that's where vibe coding and things like that, people are, it's gonna sound like I hate it, but it's not good for large scale projects yet, right? You can make what you like and test it out. You learn everything. It's the same idea going back to that 70-30. You'll get 70% of the way there. You do actually need to learn this stuff still, which I mentioned that again. At least on the engineering side, if you all do run engineering teams, at least things that you should always be able to do is explain what the heck just got written, which honestly, I've probably pushed code to a PR I didn't read. So that's me telling myself. All right. Another one is AI learns on the public code, and going back to the backend examples, it doesn't know what to do. An example I have, if you done backend is open telemetry, there's no examples online at all. You ask it to do it, it's not going to even get close to anything. And then mindless mode is the last one here. That's just basically you're tired, you want to get work done, so you just prompt it over and over and over again. So right here, just go over it again. Knowing what you did. And one kind of like crucial thing that I do like is, I don't do it because it is slower. But if you don't have AI, you're still actually able to code, right? Obviously it would be slower, which I just realized I didn't go into how you do this manually, but I can do it real quick. If that was manually, that spec would come with your project manager. You would go look up your documentation, or you look at an existing component, maybe ask somebody like the lead what they actually want, and then go look up the maybe a design file and things, right? So you're just going to 4 different places. You have to ask people things versus a tool that can probably just pull it out there, right? A lot of that does come down to providing that extra information from the project manager and the team doing it during, if you want to do Scrum, grooming, but it could be anything, right? They actually have it done there. All right, public code here. I think anybody who's gone to public code, an example I have on the next slide is Stack Overflow. You copied that stuff, it didn't work anyways. So that's what it learned on. So some stuff did work, some didn't. And that kind of gets you into the mindless mode. I think the best example is most people have done it. If you ever have to do regex for emails to validate it, it's probably the best one. None of us know how to do that. We just copy it. And usually it's not good. So Stack Overflow will usually have like the top rated things, and it's just top rated because people thought it worked. Realistically, don't. All right, so just over time, probably like the last 5 years, really, as it has taken off, you don't write boilerplate anymore. There used to be full tools to write like, can't name one right now, but basically like spin up entire like fake components for you, because this is what the website here. You don't have to look up syntax as much. It really will be able to do that for you, especially with the tab completes. When the internet's down, you gotta like actually do spaces and things like that. It's a little tedious now. And it's become more, which I'll get into some of the differences with the different type of level of engineers. You actually need to know your architectural decisions, how to look at a problem, how to do code review, especially on the senior side, because that's most of your time. And then taste, which I'll get into as well, which is not just software engineering, it's actually knowing what good things look like there. And then critical thinking, which should be for anything. All right, and this is when I'll talk on kind of the difference levels here. We've probably seen that like junior engineers aren't getting hired as much because they really just want, basically seniors will just go off with AI and they actually know what the heck's going on so they can read the code. A junior engineer has never seen, like what you get taught in college is like data structures, things like that. You haven't seen like a 1,000,000 line code, the repo that does full scale stuff unless you basically work on open source or might have done an internship, right? So a lot of junior engineers, they basically can get more done, but a lot of the things I touched on, they're just gonna go that mindless mode and just skip because they need to get things done to basically say that they're done, right? Especially like I've worked with junior engineers with AI, they'll just throw something up in a PR, they don't know what's going on. So that's where this mentorship, if you do have junior engineers, is where they're still following kind of your guardrails, right? Or best practices with coding. I don't think they're bad at all, right? It's just seniors know how to review things much quicker. So people are like, I don't want to spend the time on basically mentoring them. I think it's always been like that. I think that will come back with juniors actually being hired more. Once it's a different model set. They used to, you would do pair programming with a junior, things like that. That if you did that still, they're going to be just as fast, in my opinion. So, Same learning curve, they're just expected more now because of AI. On seniors, obviously, they can go super duper fast because they actually know what it looks like with, like I mentioned, taste. They know what's going on there and how to do it. One thing to touch on here is mental capacity of a senior engineer. If you've ever seen, I just did like single agent, you'll have like multi-agent things where you're running multiple different problem sets at a time. That is, in my opinion, I don't do that just because I'm trying to focus on one thing at a time. So that becomes kind of your blocker there that you're doing. You already manage people typically, so you know how to at least instruct a junior engineer. If you ever had an engineer that is maybe, like I said, new, you tell them to do something like that bad prompt, they said vibe coding, they'll just go off and do it. If they don't ask questions, so you know how to at least prompt it well. And then, like I mentioned, the taste again. All right. I probably won't touch on taste again. Sorry, don't stay taste. All right. All right. At least the main takeaway on things on the engineering side, if you are engineers, really, if you actually read the code that it outputs, you're going to be better than most people right now. As sad as it is, that's basically your main thing, right? That it outputs everything. You're actually reading it and doing it the same way you've done before, right? That is the gist of it. Don't take shortcuts. Actually learn your stuff. That 30% that you do is what's going to actually make the product good. Yeah, right. You're still going to be responsible. Your system actually works. You know what's happening. I'll get into some statistics that you can track, and where that if you commit stuff you don't know, that you're basically screwed when it goes bad. Code team understand architect's decisions that AI can't make, like those back-end things I'd mentioned, and then you still need quality, which I'll get into, tracking quality versus just speed with AI. All right. We'll get into measuring what matters, which is more on, if you have a larger engineering team, you can definitely do this. Smaller, you can probably just track it manually and just kind of do, I don't know, just ask the team really on the investment there. So I'm going to get into a few in this. I've helped with these things before. One thing here is definitely tracking, which we've all seen the stats. If you follow it, human run versus AI assisted code, that's good. Obviously, the higher it goes, does automatically mean it's better. Survivability rates, which is basically on a PR, if something does get put into there, or in cursor, how many denies you're actually getting there. Because if you have a high deny rate, whatever rule sets you're using actually aren't good, right? So you are able to track this stuff. A lot of tools are slowly adding this. A lot of this is still custom done. The next 4 are from Dora, which is like a DevOps framework just for following engineering efficiencies. You'll still want to track deployment frequencies, which should go up with AI code. That's what you're thinking. Lead time for changes, which is basically from the time that somebody gets a feature to implement and it goes out the door in production, right? Those 2 things are meant for speed. The next 2 are really the quality gates there, where change failure rate, that's how many times a new deployment fails. Obviously, you don't want that to go down. And then time to restore a service, that's where, not saying Amazon did it, but they went down a few weeks ago and it took them like a whole day. That was a different issue. That was probably not AI. Just if like that code, if you don't know what it wrote and you're going to read it because you just went mindless and you want, I don't know, your Friday to be done, it goes down. You're gonna have 3 days of debugging and angry people. So other things, some of these come from the space framework, which if anyone has questions on these, please let me know. I would say larger organizations can definitely do those, Dora or space. Satisfaction surveys, a lot of that is just typical employee stuff, but this would be focused on the engineering side, where you're actually asking people kind of how they like it. For us, I mean, we just did surveys, honestly, on tools and things like that. Feature velocity, that is the entire feature, which should be tracked on product management side, and then customer impact, which is obviously your end goal there is to make it where they're actually happier. If you have faster speed, you have less failures, but the product sucks more because you're testing things wrong. And maybe you were trying to make features that actually aren't good, and now you get to do it faster. Obviously, you want to track that normally. All right. Things here that you should not only track, usage adoption rates. I hate when I see like a CEO of like a company and they're like, yeah, 90% of our code is written with AI and everyone's coding like 1 million lines a month. That's good. Your site went down, so it doesn't matter. things like that, you actually do have to do the quality gates, which I explained some of them. I know more of them. They do need to still do those. Obviously, you want more speed, which is what AI will give you. So that's everything.